Hey, what's going on? It is yours truly, Timothy J. Jones. Thank you for stopping by the State of the NFL podcast. I ask that you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This is a channel where we talk about some of the hottest topics in all of the NFL. Hey, what's going on, sports fans? My name is TJ Jones. Welcome to another edition of the State of the NFL podcast. It's where we talk about some of the hottest topics in all of the National Football League. And before we get started, I ask that you hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the State of the NFL podcast to grow, and I would really appreciate that. On this edition, we're going to be talking about Browns quarterback Shadir Sanders and owner Jimmy Haslam having some very controversial things to say about his rookie quarterback. And we're also going to be talking about Shannon Sharpe being let go from ESPN. But let's go ahead and get into it. Talk a little bit about Shadir Sanders. Shadir Sanders right now is going through Browns training camp, but he is, of course, not alone. There are three other quarterbacks that are trying to become the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. You have Joe Flacco, a longtime seasoned veteran, a Super Bowl MVP with the Baltimore Ravens back in the day. You got Kenny Pickett, who was a first-round draft pick a few years back, coming out of Pitt, being drafted by the Steelers, and he's trying to find his way in the National Football League. And you also have rookie Dillon Gabriel coming out of the University of Oregon, who was a very talented guy on the collegiate level. And, of course, Shadir Sanders. These are your four quarterbacks that are trying to move up the depth chart in Cleveland. And Shadir Sanders has been a high-profile athlete since he has come out of high school, right? To say the least, the University of Colorado. But you know, during the whole entire draft process, everybody had something to say about Shadir Sanders. Oh, he's not as good. Some people say that he's really good. Some people feel like he can be a franchise quarterback. There are others that feel like he's in a position that he's in because of his father, the legendary Deion Sanders. But there's a lot of conversation being had about Shadir Sanders and also the draft process, especially at the combine. Now, I actually attended the combine, and, you know, I stood in as the media spoke to Shadir Sanders and asked him a bunch of questions. And, you know, there was also whispers and talk about how he carried himself when it came to certain teams. He wasn't very, you know, I guess like very open, and a lot of people felt like he wasn't as knowledgeable when it came to the X's and O's. But, you know, wherever you stand when it comes to Shadir Sanders, he's a talented young quarterback. And, you know, him being drafted in the fifth round to me was an absolute embarrassment when it comes to the draft process. Now, you can say that he leaves a lot to be desired, but the fact that we have seen some quarterbacks that leave way more to be desired than he was and got drafted higher, it's just a slap in the face. And we also know that the NFL has a way sometimes of trying to humble guys, right? To let you know that no matter how talented you are, no matter how much you can bring to the table, nobody's bigger than the shield. So you got to carry yourself in a certain way. But to credit to Shadir Sanders, what he did was once he was drafted to the Cleveland Browns, you didn't really hear anything from him. Like a lot of people thought, like, boy, his older brother Deion Sanders Jr. was going to show up with the media team, and, you know, he was going to be doing all these crazy things. But this guy has been dialed in. You haven't heard much from him. And he's just going about his business, which, you know, I just feel like it may have changed a lot of people's perspective about Shadir Sanders, because we know that it didn't have anything to do when it came to him being a quarterback. But to make things even more alarming in Cleveland, right, on top of the fact that they end up drafting Dillon Gabriel a couple of rounds before Shadir Sanders, you have Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, coming out saying stuff like this. This is courtesy of NFL.com. And he spoke a little bit about, the draft process and the team drafting Shadir Sanders. And he said, you know, if you would have told me on Friday night that we would have ended up drafting Shadir Sanders the next day, I wouldn't have believed you. And he also gave credit to GM Andrew Berry and the front office of the Cleveland Browns, you know, being knowledgeable guys, and, you know, saying that Andrew Berry was the mastermind behind drafting Shadir Sanders. So it was like, they didn't even feel like they actually needed Shadir Sanders because they got Dylan Gabriel. And you also are hearing reports about the Browns possibly open to the fact of tanking for a quarterback, Arch Manning, who is supposed to come out of the University of Texas in 2026. Me personally, I don't know if that's possible or not. I won't say possible, but I just feel like, why is Arch Manning coming out if he can stay at college like 2 years, right? I mean, it's not like he needs the money, right? I mean, I think he all right. And also, he probably wants to get acclimated to Steve Sarkisian's system a little bit longer and try to play on a collegiate level because, some guys just want to enjoy the college experience and play it out. Don't have to rush into the league. A lot of players end up going because, rather it's like financial situation, trying to take care of their families. That is something that is completely understandable. But who's to say that Arch Manning is even going to come out of Texas in 2026? And even with that, it just tells me if you are open to tanking just for a quarterback, like that just shows me that, you're just a pitiful franchise. And the Cleveland Browns have been a pitiful franchise. And this is one of the reasons why. When Jimmy Haslam can go up here and turn his nose up at a quarterback who was really accurate, completing over 70% of his passes, really good touchdown to interception ratio coming out of Colorado and even at Jackson State, for you to be able to turn your nose up at a guy when you have been inept at selecting quarterbacks. I mean, I can go back as far as 2000, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to just go back as far as 2010. These are the quarterbacks that have started for the Cleveland Browns since 2010. You got Colt McCoy, Jake Delhomme, Seneca Wallace. Colt McCoy in 2011 and Seneca Wallace. 2012, Brandon Weeden and Thaddeus Lewis. 2013, Jason Campbell, Brandon Weeden, Brian Hoyer. 2014, Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, Connor Shaw. 2015, Josh McCown, Johnny Manziel, Austin Davis. 2016, Cody Kessler, Robert Griffin III, Josh McCown. 2017, Deshaun Kaiser, Kevin Hogan. 2018, they drafted Baker Mayfield, and Tyrod Taylor started a game. 2019, Baker Mayfield. 2020, Baker Mayfield. So out of all of these years so far, there's only been 2 years where you have the same quarterback in back-to-back seasons. Baker went 3 years, right? So you had Baker in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. 4 seasons. Then in 2022, you had Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson. 2023, you had Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, P.J. Walker, and Jeff Driscoll. And in 2024, you had Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and you also had Bailey Zappi. So to say that this team is the epitome of an M quarterback selection would be an understatement of a lifetime. And we also seen that Baker Mayfield has found new life in Tampa. So not only are you not being able to pick the right quarterbacks, you're not able to develop them either. And Jimmy Haslam has the nerve to really be going at Shadir Sanders and saying that, oh, he's not our guy. You should be excited at the fact that you have such a high-profile quarterback that has the ability to be able to make plays. But this is such a Cleveland Brown thing. And I don't mean any disrespect to the Cleveland Browns fans. Lord knows you all have endured a lot. But the reality is, as long as you have decision makers like this, you're going to continue to go down a downward spiral. Waiting on the cavalry to come, it just tells me that you're not ready. And it is disrespectful to the players that you already have on your team. These guys that are fighting, scratching, clawing, and trying to bring credibility to Cleveland. Meanwhile, you over here looking out in Austin and hoping that the cavalry comes in a form of Arch Manning. Shadir Sanders deserves better. If you didn't want Shadir Sanders, if you weren't high on the guy, if you felt like there wasn't a possibility that he has a chance to be a starter, why in the world are you trying to draft him? It was disrespectful. We all know that if Shadir Sanders maybe wouldn't have done some of the things he did during the combine, he would have been drafted much higher. the fact that the NFL is acting as if this guy is incapable of playing a quarterback position at a high level is just laughable to me, because everyone was referring to how this guy could possibly change the franchise in 2024 when the season first started. Then all of a sudden, people didn't like the way that he carried himself during the draft process, and now he can't hit the back of a barn door. Like, give me a freaking break, man. Cleveland, if you don't want the guy to be on your team, allow him to go somewhere else, or let him go where he can find a team that will be committed to him. And if he gets to the right team, I guarantee you he is going to be a star. And this would be yet another player that has come from the Cleveland Browns that has found new life and credibility with another team that they couldn't find in Cleveland. So they got to get it together, man. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk a little bit about Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe being let go from ESPN after the sexual assault lawsuit. According to sources, Shannon Sharpe settled with the plaintiff, who is known as Jane Doe, for $50 million, according to reports there. Of course, we know that this rift between ESPN and Shannon Sharpe started back in April. I got the timeline right here. Go ahead and pull that up. All right, so on April 24th of 2025, shortly after the lawsuit was filed against Sharpe, ESPN didn't fire him, but just basically said, man, Shannon, stay at home. And Shannon also came out and said, hey, I wasn't fired by ESPN, just taking some time off. I'll be back at the start of training camp. To me, that was probably a way for ESPN to kind of distance themselves while Shannon Sharpe figured it out. And then finally, now that he settled this lawsuit for allegedly $50 million, ESPN felt like that was grounds for him to be let go, right? I mean, I guess, conduct detrimental to the brand. I don't know. But all I know is this is very, very upsetting. Shannon Sharpe, I watched Shannon Sharpe when I was growing up as a kid. I mean, he was one of my favorite players to watch when he was a tight end. I was fortunate enough to actually see him as a player, know how talented he is. It's crazy that you have a lot of fans of the National Football League that never seen Shannon Sharpe play and only really know Shannon Sharpe for him being on FS1's Undisputed with Skip Bayless, and of course Club Shay Shay for the very popular viral interview with Cat Williams and interviewing so many other famous individuals. But he was a beast in his day, man. He was a beast, and he was becoming a beast in the world of media. And it's not to say that he still can't be that, but we also know that he cost himself a lot of bread. According to sources, that he lost more than $100 million. We know that report was coming out, a few weeks before the whole lawsuit thing started to make its rounds. So Shannon Sharpe was slowly becoming the face of, sports media. Like, he was really becoming that guy. I mean, he interviewed Kamala Harris during a presidential campaign. He's interviewed renowned individuals that people everyday Joe Blow's not going to be able to get nowhere near, right? He was on his way. And, of course, this kind of slowed him down, and it's unfortunate, man. Look, I don't know what happened with Shannon Sharpe, and I'm not here to speculate, but all I know is this is really, really sad, and you have to be careful with the decisions that you indeed make. Sometimes you get all this fame and all this recognition, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of hard for you to be able to process it, and you don't necessarily make some of the right decisions. But all in all, Shannon Sharpe has gained enough traction that he still will be able to eat and still be able to be successful. He's probably just going to have to continue to kind of carve out his own lane like he was doing before and rebuild his credibility. So that's just going to come with great shows like he does with Chad Ochocinco with Nightcap and Club Shay Shay. He has a video up right now as I speak. He just interviewed his big brother Sterling Sharpe, a very talented wide receiver back in his day. So he's not slowing down. He's continuing to work. But I just hope that, this situation can get, he can get past this and he can get back to being that charismatic, talented media guy that he has become. Look, I'm not in the business of doing all that, what I feel about Shannon Sharpe and all that kind of stuff. I mean, all that would just be pure speculation at this point. But all I'm saying is, like, you definitely want to be careful to not be able to lose out on great opportunities, man. That's why you have to carry yourself in a certain way. That's the reason why you got to make sure that you're dotting the I's and you're crossing your T's, man. But I feel like Shannon Sharpe will be able to bounce back. His shows are still some of the most popular shows on social media and YouTube, like, the clips, the reels. I mean, they get shared all around, and I don't feel like his position is going to be hurt by that. So people have different opinions, and as long as those opinions are, going back and forth, there's still a chance that he can still be, the guy that he wants to be and rebuild his brand and continue to bring in credibility to the Club Shay Shay brand and the Nightcap brand.